The mahogany dining table at my parents' house seemed to stretch endlessly, laden with our family's traditional Thanksgiving spread. But the turkey wasn't the only thing getting roasted that evening. Still selling used clothes, Sarah? My sister Victoria's voice dripped with condescension as she adjusted her channel jacket. I thought surely by now you'd have found a real career. I took a slow sip of wine, letting the expensive vintage, which I quietly provided, roll over my tongue. If only they knew that the little thrift store they loved to mock had become the foundation of something far bigger. The store's doing well, actually, I replied mildly. We just opened our third location. Oh, honey, my mother sighed, exchanging knowing looks with Victoria. When you say location, you mean another recycled clothing shop in a strip mall, right? Victoria smirked. Meanwhile, my luxury brand just secured another round of funding. We're projecting billion-dollar revenues next year. I thought about the reports sitting in my other office, the one my family didn't know existed, showing exactly how precarious Victoria's company's financial position really was. But I just smiled and helped myself to more stuffing. The truth was, my little thrift store had taught me something invaluable 10 years ago. While Victoria was busy chasing fashion trends and burning through investor cash, I discovered that vintage clothing wasn't just about recycling. It was about recognizing hidden value that others missed. Remember when Sarah thought she was going to be a fashion designer? Victoria laughed, turning to her husband James. Thank God she settled for selling second-hand clothes instead of embarrassing us at Fashion Week. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. He'd been the one to suggest I scale back my ambitions after fashion school, claiming the industry was too competitive for someone like me. Now he avoided my eyes across the table. What they didn't know was that I had never given up on that dream. I just found a different path to achieve it. It started with a single vintage dyer dress I found buried in a donation bin. While researching its history, I discovered an entire underground network of high-end vintage collectors and dealers. People who understood that true fashion wasn't about the latest trends, but about quality, craftsmanship, and timeless style. That knowledge became power. My little thrift store expanded into carefully curated vintage collections. Then came the private showings for selective clients. Eventually, I launched my own brand, Phoenix Fashion House, under a different name, using the lessons learned from decades of fashion history. But my family didn't know about Phoenix. They didn't know that the mysterious company quietly buying up struggling fashion brands and turning them around was mine. They certainly didn't know that I now controlled more of the industry than Victoria could imagine. At least tell me you're finally dating someone successful, my mother pressed. You're not getting any younger, dear. I thought of Marcus, my partner both in business and life, who was currently overseeing our latest acquisition in Milan. Another secret I kept from my status-obsessed family. Still single, I said cheerfully. Too busy with the shops. Victoria rolled her eyes. Those shabby little stores can't possibly take that much time to manage. You should let me set you up with someone. Maybe they can help you find a more prestigious position. I hid my smile in my wine glass. This morning, I'd signed the papers to acquire a controlling interest in one of Victoria's main competitors. By next quarter, her billion-dollar projections would be worth less than the paper they were printed on. Speaking of positions, my father turned to Victoria. How are things really going at Stellar Fashion? I heard some rumors about cash flow problems. Victoria's smile tightened slightly. Just temporary growing pains. We're in talks with several potential investors. I knew those talks had all fallen through. Victoria's company was hemorrhaging money, burning through cash with overambitious expansion plans and poor inventory management. She'd forgotten the first rule I'd learned from my vintage business. Value isn't about what something costs. It's about what it's worth. Well, if you need any help, my father started, but Victoria cut him off. Everything's fine. In fact, we just had a mysterious new investor express interest. Very exclusive, very private. They're known for turning struggling brands into global powerhouses. I raised an eyebrow, wondering if she meant who I thought she did. Oh, what's the company called? Phoenix Fashion House, Victoria said proudly. They're very selective about their investments. The fact that they're interested in Stellar shows how prestigious our brand has become. It took everything I had not to laugh. I'd instructed my team to send that letter yesterday, knowing it would give Victoria false hope right before we pulled the rug out from under her. How fascinating, I murmured. I hope it works out. Later that evening, as everyone moved to the living room for coffee, I excused myself to make a phone call. In my car, safely out of earshot, I connected with Marcus in Milan. "How did dinner go, cara mia?" His warm voice filled the car's Bluetooth speakers. About as expected, Victoria's bragging about the Phoenix letter. "Ah yes, our little bait. The board received our real offer an hour ago." They're enthusiastic. I smiled, thinking of the carefully crafted deal that would give us control of stellar fashion while leaving Victoria with nothing. And the numbers? Worse than we thought. She's been hiding losses, cooking the books. When this goes public, her reputation will be ruined, I finished. Almost as embarrassing as selling used clothes in a strip mall. Marcus chuckled. "You're enjoying this a little too much, my love." "Maybe," I admitted. "But they've got it coming. Victoria's not just bad for business, she's bad for fashion. She's everything wrong with the industry. And you're everything right with it," he said softly. "The vintage queen who built an empire by understanding true value. When are you going to tell them?" I looked back at the house, where I could see my family through the windows, still laughing, still judging, still so certain of their own superiority. "Soon," I promised. "Very soon." Walking back inside, I found Victoria holding court, describing her latest fashion show to our enraptured parents. "The influential people you meet in this industry," she was saying. "The real movers and shakers. Not like Sarah's little world of second-hand bargain hunters." If she only knew that those bargain hunters included celebrities, royalty, and fashion icons who valued the history and craftsmanship of vintage pieces. Or that many of them were now exclusive clients of Phoenix's new collections. "You know what they say," I offered innocently. "One person's trash is another person's treasure." Victoria laughed dismissively. "Please, there's a reason some things end up in thrift stores. Not everything can be salvaged." I thought of the intervention my team was planning for stellar fashion. The aggressive restructuring, the management overhaul, the complete rebranding that would erase Victoria's influence entirely. "You'd be surprised," I said softly. "Sometimes the things people throw away turn out to be the most valuable of all." My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Board just voted. We own stellar fashion. Operation Phoenix is go." I smiled, tucking the phone away. Let them mock my thrift stores. Let them dismiss my career choices. In less than 24 hours, they'd learned that the sister they'd underestimated had become the most powerful person in the room. And Victoria's face when she realized who really owned Phoenix Fashion House? That would be priceless. As I drove home that night, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. Every condescending comment, every dismissive laugh had only fueled my determination. While they were busy looking down on me, I was building something extraordinary. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, I savored the delicious irony of it all. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's success they never saw coming. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus. "Final papers signed. You now officially own your sister's company. Happy Thanksgiving, cara mia." I smiled, thinking of the vintage dyer dress that had started it all. Victoria had called it trash. I had seen its true value. Now she was about to learn the most expensive lesson in fashion history. Never underestimate someone who knows the difference between price and worth. The next morning, I dressed with particular care. A vintage Channel suit from my private collection. Not the mass-produced pieces Victoria favored, but a hand-tailored original from 1962. The same suit Jacqueline Kennedy had worn during her visit to Paris. I'd found it in an estate sale 5 years ago, recognized its value instantly, and restored it to perfection. The press release goes out in 20 minutes, Marcus informed me over video call as I adjusted my pearls. Victoria just arrived at Stellar's headquarters for what she thinks is a meeting about Phoenix's investment. How does she look? Confident, strutting. She has no idea she's walking into her own execution. I checked my reflection one final time. Record everything. I want to remember this day. Stellar Fashion's offices occupied 3 floors of a glass tower downtown. As my private elevator ascended to the executive level, I thought about how different this was from my first thrift store. A tiny shop in a strip mall. Started with nothing but determination and an eye for hidden value. The boardroom fell silent as I walked in. Victoria sat at the head of the table, surrounded by nervous-looking executives. Her smile froze when she saw me. "Sarah, What are you doing here? This is a private meeting. I know. I took my seat opposite her. I called it. Her perfectly maintained eyebrows drew together in confusion. What are you talking about? This is a meeting with Phoenix Fashion House's representatives. Exactly. I smiled, nodding to Marcus as he entered behind me. Allow me to properly introduce myself. Sarah Collins, CEO and founder of Phoenix Fashion House. The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria's face went through a range of emotions: confusion, disbelief, dawning horror. That's impossible, she finally managed. You run thrift stores. I started with thrift stores, I corrected her. They taught me everything about true value, quality, and timeless style. Things you never bothered to learn while chasing quick profits and fast fashion. Marcus began distributing folders to the board members. As of 9 a.m. this morning, Phoenix Fashion House owns a controlling interest in Stellar Fashion. These documents outline the immediate changes to management and company direction. Victoria grabbed a folder, her hands shaking. This is a joke. Some kind of sick revenge fantasy. My company is worth billions. Your company is worth nothing, I said quietly. You've been hiding losses, manipulating numbers, and burning through investor cash. Did you really think nobody would notice? Her face paled. How did you? I've been watching you for years. Every mistake, every bad decision, every shortcut that put short-term profits ahead of quality and sustainability. I knew eventually you'd dig yourself into a hole you couldn't escape. The board would never agree to this, she protested, looking around for support. But the other executives avoided her eyes. The board voted unanimously last night, Marcus informed her. They've seen the real numbers. They know Stellar is 3 months away from bankruptcy without Phoenix's intervention. Victoria stood up suddenly, her chair scraping back. Mom and Dad won't let you do this. When they find out. Find out what? I asked mildly. That the daughter they dismissed built a fashion empire while you ran yours into the ground. That all those years they spent mocking my career choices, I was becoming one of the most powerful people in the industry. This isn't fair, she whispered. Fair? I stood up slowly. Was it fair when you told everyone at fashion school that I had no talent? When you convinced Dad not to invest in my first store? When you spent years belittling my work while riding high on borrowed money and fake success? The boardroom doors opened again. My parents stood there, looking shell-shocked. I'd had Marcus invite them, knowing Victoria would call them anyway. What's going on? My father demanded. Victoria called us hysterical. Perfect timing, I said. You're just in time to see what your unsuccessful daughter has been up to. Over the next hour, Marcus and I laid out the full scope of Phoenix Fashion House's operations. The global network of high-end boutiques. The vintage collection worth more than Stellar's entire inventory. The sustainable fashion initiatives that had revolutionized the industry. All those times you laughed at my little thrift stores, I told my stunned family I was building something real, something lasting. While Victoria was chasing trends and burning money, I was learning what really matters in fashion. Quality, craftsmanship, and vision. But how? My mother whispered. All these years. Because you never bothered to look closer, Marcus answered for me. You saw what you expected to see, a small-time retailer beneath your notice. You never wondered where those rare vintage pieces in celebrity photographs came from, or who was behind the industry's biggest turnaround stories. Victoria had sunk back into her chair, her designer outfit suddenly looking cheap and gaudy compared to my historic Channel suit. What happens now? She asked, her voice small. Now, I opened another folder. You have 2 choices: resign quietly, with a modest severance package, or fight me and watch as I expose every creative accounting trick and corporate misstep you've been hiding. Either way, as of today, you no longer control Stellar Fashion. You'd do that to your own sister. I thought of all the times she'd done worse to me. You taught me everything about family loyalty, Victoria. All those Thanksgiving dinners, all those snide remarks about my career choices. Consider this your final lesson in true value. My father cleared his throat. Sarah, surely we can discuss this. Come to some family arrangement. Like the arrangement where you refused to invest in my first store? I asked quietly. Or the arrangement where you told me to give up on my dreams because the fashion industry was too competitive for someone like me. He had no answer for that. The papers are signed, Marcus announced. The press release went out 5 minutes ago. It's done. On cue, phones around the table began buzzing as the news broke. I could see the headlines now. Phoenix Fashion House acquires Stellar. Industry's mystery power player revealed. I've arranged a car to take you home, I told Victoria, who seemed to be in shock. Take the weekend to decide which option you prefer. But either way, clean out your office today. As security arrived to escort her out, she turned back to me. Did you enjoy it? All these years watching me dig my own grave? I considered the question carefully. I learned from you, Victoria. You taught me that success isn't about how much something costs. It's about seeing value where others don't. Every time you mocked my thrift stores, you just proved how little you understood about true worth. After they had all gone, Victoria to pack up her office, my parents to process their new reality, the board members to begin the transition. Marcus and I stood looking out over the city. Feeling satisfied, cara mia? He asked softly. Not satisfied, I corrected him. Justified. There's a difference. Later that evening, I visited my original thrift store, the humble shop where it had all started. The bell above the door chimed just as it had thousands of times before. Jenny, my first employee and now regional manager, looked up from sorting donations. Saw the news, she grinned. How did it feel? I ran my hand along a rack of vintage dresses waiting to be evaluated. Like everything coming full circle, the sister who sold trash now owns the sister who only valued things by their price tag. Poetic justice. More than that, I said, pulling out a promising-looking evening gown. A lesson about true value. One my family finally had to learn. My phone buzzed. Victoria, finally ready to talk. But I let it go to voicemail. She'd spent years telling me my time wasn't valuable. Now she could wait for mine. Instead, I focused on the dress in my hands. Even under the dust and wrinkles, I could see its potential. Like everything truly valuable, it just needed someone who could recognize its worth. You know what the best revenge is, Jenny? I asked, holding the dress up to the light. What's that? I smiled, thinking of Victoria's face when she realized who really owned Phoenix Fashion House. Success they never saw coming, wrapped in a vintage Channel suit they thought was trash. The end.